Talk is online. News Talk is a production of peltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users. I'm your host, Gary Baumgarten. Well, I want to tell you the story about two Christians in Egypt, Egyptian Christians. Their names are Adel Fawzi and Peter Izzat, and they are being held by security forces there for comments attributed to them on a Canadian-hosted Christian website. The two are being held on suspicion of insulting Islam and the Prophet Muhammad on the Middle East Christian Association site Mecca.com, m-e-c-a.com. The organization Christian Solidarity International says that the attorneys for the two have been denied access to them and believes that they are likely undergoing torture. In a letter to the President Bush, CSI President John Eibner says incidents of Christians being prosecuted and persecuted in Egypt are on the upswing. So I wanted to take a look at this issue of Christians being persecuted in Muslim countries. And so I am just delighted that we have as our guest Father Keith Roderick. He is an Episcopalian priest. He was a Cold War human rights activist on behalf of Soviet citizens facing religious persecution under communist rule. A chance encounter with an Egyptian Muslim who faced death threats for converting to Christianity awakened Father Roderick to the problem of religious persecution in the Muslim world. He now serves as Christian Solidarity International's representative in Washington, D.C. CSI is a Christian human rights organization for religious liberty, helping victims of religious repression, victimized children, and victims of a disaster. It is based in Switzerland, but has offices in several countries, including the United States. And before I officially welcome Father Roderick to the show, for those of you who are watching my video in the Pal Talk Virtual Auditorium, you'll see a fine-looking young man who just sat down next to me. That's my son Daniel, who may very well be interjecting his point of view during the show as well. So, Father Roderick, welcome to News Talk Online on paltalk.com.
Well, thank you very much.
Tell me how pervasive this problem is of Christians who are being persecuted for simply practicing their own religion in Muslim countries.
I think it's increasingly severe as the Middle East becomes more Islamicized. There is greater pressure put upon the minority populations, not just the Christian population, but all non-Muslim populations. I think the attack yesterday, which was the worst death toll during the Iraq War against the Yazidi community in the north, has just sent a real chill through the Christian communities throughout the Middle East, and they're waiting for the next shoe to fall. But the pressure in Egypt has been increasing against those who are advocating basic human rights, especially these two civil rights activists, Ms. Adel Fawzi and Peter Izzat. And we're seeing that in other areas as well. But Egypt has the largest Christian population in the Middle East, probably between 8 and 12 million people. So, of course, that catches our attention, and we should be focused on what's happening there.
Well, if they have such a significant population of Christians, albeit a minority, but significant in Egypt, how can the Egyptian government get away with doing
it? They don't have any political clout. The fact of the matter is there are, 6 members of the parliament appointed by President Mubarak. None have been elected. So they don't form a significant base, and so it's easy to be disenfranchised and marginalized, and that's exactly what has happened. In the Egyptian constitution, freedom of religion is guaranteed, even though Islam is the official religion of the republic. Nevertheless, the emergency laws are used on a consistent basis to undermine the credibility and the viability of the Christian community in Egypt.
Well, if these are Muslim communities that are discriminating against Christians and people of other religions, I find this hard to comprehend, given the fact that it's my understanding that the Islamic faith calls for respect for other religions, and yet we see this kind of attack by fundamentalist Muslims and now by governments against people who believe differently than they do.
That's exactly right. There's not one Islamic country where Muslims dominate, or where there is an established Sharia-based legal system and government system that does not in some form discriminate, at the least, against non-Muslims, or at the worst persecute them. And that is a concern. I think that's a concern not just for the non-Muslim community, but it should be a concern for the Muslim community. I think non-Muslim communities such as the Christians in Egypt and Iraq, as well as the other minorities, are a real potent force for moderation. And if they're marginalized to the point where they have no effect on the development or formation of culture and progress within the country towards more pluralism and democratization, I think the country itself suffers, society suffers, because it just lays the groundwork and nourishes the fundamentalists and the extremists within the Muslim society.
My guest